Well, welcome people, and thank you for joining the Community Council. Oh, and for purposes of counting, we have a couple of couples here, Diane. So we have right now more than 19 participants. In any event, welcome to you all at the Community Council meeting. This may be the last meeting of the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council, and its successor will be taking over, which is the Vashon-Maury Community Council. And the difference is, as you'll probably learn a little later, that the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council was created as a 501c3, which limits some of its operations. And we are reincorporating, or we have already incorporated as a 501c4 with the new name, the Vashon-Maury Community Council. I'm going to ask Nick Simmons to give a brief technical overview about a Zoom meeting. You know, the details such as raising your hand and things like that. So Nick, if you could explain.
Hello, pretty standard stuff. You will be muted by me when you join if you're not already muted. So if you want to speak at any time during the meeting, please click the reactions button and then raise hand. And the chair or whoever is speaking will call on you, and then you have to unmute yourself. I cannot unmute you. If you're calling in on a phone, you have to press *6 to unmute yourself. We have one person on a cell phone with us tonight. Please, particularly on Vashon, only join with one computer. Our bandwidth out here is pretty terrible. And if you're having a hard time seeing or hearing or being heard, turn your video off, and that usually helps your upload. I think that's it. Thanks, David.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Any people out there have questions about the process? Okay, well, nice to see folks who are joining us, and we've got some people who've been participants for many years, and it's always nice to bring in new people. And essentially, the thing that keeps the Community Council going is community participation. So if you have friends who have any kind of an interest in our community and our relations with other governments and other entities, the Community Council is really our best link. So now is time for my formal welcome. So welcome. And I'm the how would you say, the erstwhile president of the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council. And the first thing I'd like to do, I think we're going to need a few more people to actually approve the minutes, but we may have 21 here. Let's see, we've got 3, I've seen 3 non-islanders, and I see 2 double counted entries. So we're at 24. I think we go ahead.
Well, we need 25 for a quorum, David, and people have to be members of VMICC in order for us to have a quorum, and we're not anywhere near that yet.
Oh, we're close, but okay. Well, in any event,
but there's no reason,
point of order.
There's no reason we can't do have updates from the sheriff's office and things like that without voting.
Sure, absolutely. And so first, I'd like to introduce our guests. Then, yes,
David, and Kevin Jones has a point of order.
Okay, Kevin.
Thank you, Dan. Curious, are people able to sign up as members at tonight's meeting?
Yes, I believe so. Can join and participate.
one can definitely join the organization because the only thing we need is to have people confirm certain things about themselves, and they can do that in the chat because we have to have a record of it. And they could do that in the chat, or they could send an email to me, but the chat would be easier. A private message to me so that the details aren't shared with the whole group would be the easiest way to do it, either email or chat as part of the meeting. People certainly can do that. They need to give me their full name. They need to confirm that they're 18 years of age or older. They need to give their mailing address on Vashon-Maury Island. And they need to say that they want to be a member of both, if they wish, both the existing VMICC, which is tonight's, may well be its last meeting, and the new Vashon-Maury Community Council, both organizations, the new one and the old one. And then they're in, because there's no cost, it's free, and it's open to everybody who resides on the island.
Okay, thank you, Diane. And at this point, I would like to introduce the guests for our meeting. And we have Captain Heather Volpe of the King County Sheriff's Office. She is the captain at Precinct 4. Bong Santo Domingo, who is, I believe, community liaison for the rural areas department, or roads in rural areas. But Bong, what is your group called? You need to unmute.
Department of Local Services.
Oh, okay, that's right. Department of Local Services.
Mm.
Didn't it used to be roads and no? Okay.
No. Roads
Local...
is part of our department. Roads
oh,
as well
okay.
as permitting is part
okay.
of our department. Mm.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Mm.
So it's a big department.
It is.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us once again, Bong. And if you have issues that we want to bring to the attention of King County, Bong is the person who we should be conveying those issues to. Mm-hmm. And let's see, we also have, just one second. You, excuse me.
I can maybe introduce myself. Hi, it's
Eunbi Eunbi Lee.
Yes, Eunbi Lee.
Eunbi Lee.
Yes.
Eunbi Lee, and she's here from, is it the health department?
Yes, Public Health, Seattle and King County Department.
Okay.
And yeah, with the septic system program.
Yeah, you know, many years ago, I was your attorney for the Public Health Department. Awesome. Yes, and I was also the president of the community council when we decided that we needed to do a septic survey and find out all the failing septic systems on Vashon. It was an interesting time. Yeah,
that's good. Yes, we can dig in more.
Yes, I even had to write up a search warrant for someone's toilet. But that's how things go. Yes. In any event, okay, it looks like we may be approaching that magic number, Diane, of 20. We have 28. We've got 3 off-islanders, and we have 2 couples who are both present on the computer. Diane?
Let me just run through and see who I've got here. 1, 2,
okay.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Only about 17, David. I don't know. I don't know who the phone number is, 1-206-371-1883. I don't know who that is, so I need to know who that is before I can determine if they're a member or not.
All right. And
So if that person could unmute themselves then and let us know who that is, that would be wonderful.
also, we have a couple of couples who are on together.
John
on,
and Camille are both. I counted them as 2.
okay.
I don't know who else are as couples here.
I saw another couple there, but maybe I'm double counting. Okay. And if there's someone who is not yet considered a member of the community council, please let us know. So,
Yeah, I'm working
let us
on that
know.
too, David. I'm working on that too, bringing people in as members in the
Okay.
chat.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's going to take
with
a little while. So I'm just
Beverly
gonna concentrate
Skeffing,
on that, okay?
I see Beverly Skeffington, and I see that she's with someone else. And so I was wondering if both Beverly and her partner are both members. You'd have to unmute yourself,
And
Beverly.
I just sent
I
it.
have Jack. Yep, she just did. Okay, good. So that means I got both of you in.
Okay,
Jack.
great.
Okay, I'm going to put him in there.
Okay. And how does one become a member? That question was just raised. And what you do is you basically communicate, you can communicate by chat with Diane on this Zoom meeting right now and indicate that you wish to be a member, that you're over 18, and give your address. And that's all you have to do. And
Your
email address is good too.
Yes, email address is ideal as well, but we also for sure need a postal address.
Okay, because we are limited to people who are residents of Vashon over 18 who want to participate. But it sure looks like we're up to that number already.
Is it age 18 or older or older than 18?
18 and older, basically voting age. Okay, well, you know, at this point, I do think we have a quorum. We've got 27 Islanders and 28, 29. I don't know how many of them have indicated they wanted to be members yet, but it sure looks like we have more than 25. So I'm
looking at page 2. I think it's pretty good. Yes, it'll be fine tuned, but I'm sure it'll be fine.
Okay, so I'm going to review and see if there are any additions or changes to the agenda for today, which was sent out by email. Does anyone have any changes that they'd like to make to today's agenda? Okay, I see Kevin Jones has his hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, David. I would like to add a discussion of the land acknowledgement motion that was introduced at the last meeting, and some of that dialogue at that meeting said we would be discussing it at this meeting. So I'd like to hear the status.
Well, when we get to the report from the Equity Committee, we could discuss it then. I believe that the person who had been at the last meeting and offered it, she had made there were some statements in that land acknowledgement that needed verification. I specifically asked her about that. I did not hear back from her. And I know that Raina was also going to do some research. So I think before we are able to put it up for a vote, we have to firm up the language for one.
I think we could either discuss it now or add it to the agenda, but however you'd like to proceed. I do have several questions, and
okay,
now or later, but I'd certainly like to discuss it.
Okay, well, we're right now at the, well, first I'm going to ask, are there any objections to the agenda other than the addition? I see Jean Thomas has raised a hand.
Thank you. It's Jean Marie. Thank you very much.
Jean Marie.
I was hoping we could reintroduce Bong because I just noted a little confusion about his role and I was not left understanding what his role is. And I'd also like to know how to contact him, please.
Oh, great. Okay, well, thank you for asking about that. Bong, could you introduce yourself? Tell us what your role is and also your contact information, if you could put that in, say, the chat.
Definitely.
Okay.
My name is Bong Santo Domingo. I work for King County's Department of Local Services. So we are your local government because you're in unincorporated King County. And my role is I do ombudsman work for the community. So this is one community that I work in, as well as North Highline, which is famously known as White Center, and West Hill, also famously known as Skyway, and also East Federal Way, and as well as Enumclaw. So my job is to listen to folks in the community who have issues with county government. And that's my role. My role is to make sure it does not escalate to another level.
And Bong, how can we reach you? What is your best?
I will type in my information here, and then and I'll also put in my cell phone number. How's that?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay. All right. Now we're on to committee reports. The first committee, the Affordable Housing Committee. Morgan, do you have much to add from your previous Zoom report?
Yeah, I'll give a little bit. As we were
Okay.
talking about before the meeting got going, it was a little bit of a non-meeting. There was some Zoom problems and people weren't able to get in. I'll mention here just what we were planning on going over, because we'll go over it next time, and I think it's fairly relevant and other folks would probably be interested. We had Lane Zorich before, the new sub-area planner for Vashon, and she announced, some fairly momentous stuff, I think, for the island, that as part of the King County 2024 comp plan, which is underway right now, she has been given, as the sub-area planner, the new sub-area planner for Vashon, the task of looking at 2 work groups. And both of them have some fairly significant things for the island and for affordable housing. One is they're going to be taking a look at the special district overlay that was done for affordable housing in the town. It's the most controversial thing easily by far with the last sub-area plan we did, and why it's been totally ineffective. And she said there's 2 topics on it. And one is they either scratch it altogether or they look at tweaking it. And one of the things they were thinking about tweaking was opening it up to some market rate development instead of just being 100% affordable. So if you're interested in that and the next topic, please come to our next affordable housing meeting. The other one is the P suffix development conditions. That's true for a lot of places on the island, but it's particularly true for a lot of the areas around town. And the most acute one, which we'd like to debate, is the fact that right now, based on the 1996 town core plan, there is a codified 2-story or 35-foot limit on anything in the town core. And they're taking a look at whether they should change that or not, maybe take out the 2-story requirement. So if you've got opinions on either of those things, I sent out something and I'll send that out to everybody who's on the affordable housing list. And if you'd like to be on that, please send an email to me. I'll put my email in the chat. We intend to debate that and hopefully use our committee as a forum to bring that before the community council. So we'll go over that at our next meeting. And then we'll debate whether we're going to switch to Wednesdays too. I guess this committee is changing their meetings to Monday. We've always been in between the board meeting and this community council meeting on Monday nights. We may switch that to Wednesday. So if anybody's got opinions on that, let me know as well. So I'll put my email in the text with some messages, but that's it, unless anybody's got any questions.
There is a question in the chat.
In the chat.
Hey.
When are the meetings held? They have been every Wednesday, 1 week essentially before this community council meeting. So the second Wednesday of the month, second Monday of the month. I think we'll debate switching it to the Wednesday. But if you're interested in it, anybody, just let me know an email. I see somebody's already said in the chat they're interested in email. I'll make note of that and put anybody on the distribution list and put my name out there. Okay, I see a few
Okay.
people. That's great.
Well, thank you very much, Morgan.
Okay.
The next committee is the Equity, Social Justice and Inclusion Committee. Kevin Jones.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you, David. Let's see, Morgan, you should know that the aforementioned committee meets the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m.
Okay.
So those interested in this topic will want
Okay.
to, those interested in this committee would, I welcome you to add your, you can privately send a chat message to me or publicly if you choose. I would need to know your name and your email address, in which case I can make sure to add you to the Equity, Social Justice and Inclusion Committee invitation list. The activities of the committee right now, we're going to talk a little bit later about land acknowledgement motion that was introduced at the last meeting. The major focus right now is in the outreach to the community. So individuals and groups, we've identified in those three areas, equity, social justice, inclusion, a set of questions that we would like to ask community leaders, leaders of clubs and organizations and other entities on Vashon-Maury Islands, to ask a set of questions around those three key topics. That discussion is, we're definitely in the middle of that right now. And the actual approach and how we do the outreach is another topic of discussion. So if you'd like to help us brainstorm how to move forward, I would love to have you on the committee. I'd like to acknowledge that tonight, Hunter, Jessica, Catherine and Deborah are all, sorry, Kathleen and Deborah are all also members of the committee, and glad to see you here. And David, I'll just close with possibly it's a point of order, but I don't believe we have approved the minutes of the last meeting yet. If we did, I missed it.
No, we have not yet. No, we have not yet. And
Very
so,
good. Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. So happy to answer any questions if people have them.
Okay. And I would like to go back to the draft minute or the minutes for the meeting from August 15th. And are there people who have additions or corrections that they would like to make to those minutes which were sent out? One thing is it does not state the entire land acknowledgement. And there were a couple of issues that I believe the board had with the proposed land acknowledgement. One is that we didn't know if it was accurate. I know there was a statement in there that referred to the genocide of the people who had lived on Vashon. And, you know, I've represented several tribes. I've represented many Native people with regard to rights, you know, tribal rights and treaty rights. And one of the differences between the Northwest Indians and the rest of the country essentially is that by the time the American soldiers had come out to the West Coast and had fought battle after battle and did commit a number of genocides along the way, they had realized that it would be more in their interest to negotiate treaties than to commit a genocide. And so for that reason, there was certainly displacement of tribal people, but to my knowledge, there was no genocide in the Pacific Northwest. And so I was one of the people who objected to that. And then I know that Raina Holtz had a disagreement with the name of our predecessors on Vashon. So there were a few things that needed to be straightened out. And we have not had follow-up from the committee members who were proposing your land acknowledgement. I note that the Duwamish tribe website has guidance for people who would like to include an appropriate land acknowledgement, and it's right on their website. And Allison Tourville put that into our chat, a reference to that, and it's a very simple land acknowledgement. I think that we want to make the community council as inclusive as possible. And one should understand that the community council is intended to be a forum for everyone on the island, and not just for the progressives and the people who feel that, cutting a tree is an immoral act or whatever. There are people who their predecessors on the island were loggers, were farmers, and they have different opinions about the community council. And these are people we want to include rather than exclude. I know that politics has gotten to a very sorry state in our country where people don't listen to each other. And that's not the model that we want for the community council. So I think if we have a land acknowledgement that will seem very exclusive to people, it's not something that I know, speaking for the board, it was not something the board was real happy about. I think we were looking to have more inclusion in the community council. Now I see your hand is raised, Kevin.
Yes, to discuss the minutes of the last meeting. I thought that's the agenda topic that we were on.
We were.
Okay, so I was going to propose the statement, the wording of the motion that Allison presented last time, which wasn't in the minutes.
Okay.
And I think there's some additional steps. Thank you, Diane, for articulating those. And I went back to the video recording of the meeting and captured those with higher degree of accuracy than in the current minutes. So what I'd like to do is just submit some text that the person who puts the minutes together can use in whole cloth or modify, but I'd like to make those additions. And the other thing is that there was some questioning about the naming of the tribes in the draft land or the proposed land acknowledgement, which we also acknowledged as a living document. And there was some confusion because we were listening to the spoken word and not seeing the written word, and some of the tribal names are very similar. So I'd like to propose a set of texts that I could submit to the right person, David, with some suggestions for the minutes to make them more inclusive.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I do notice that a comment was made to me that natives is the term, not Indians. And I do take issue with that because, as I said, I've represented 2 tribes and many tribal members who generally refer to themselves as Indians. Now, natives is also a word that they use. They do not refer to themselves as Native Americans. You almost never hear that in a tribal meeting, but Indians is generally the term of choice. So, but in any event, I would, go ahead.
I think you're probably calling on Deborah, who has her hand up, or me.
Oh, okay. Deborah?
Yes, just to speak to that issue, it just so happens that I've spent the entirety of this last weekend in workshops and worship experiences with Dr. Mary Christ, who is Blackfeet and is the head of Indigenous education for the Episcopal Church of the U.S. at the national level. And she addressed the nomenclature. And might I suggest the word indigenous as a common ground? She pointed out that to say Native Americans neglects Canada and Mexico. And Indian is a preferential name that can be chosen individually and doesn't have the global. So perhaps we need to use the word indigenous.
And indigenous sorry, but that is a very good word. And there was a interview on Fresh Air today with the, I think maybe the writer of the TV series Reservation Dogs. And what he said is that the terms of choice would include indigenous, would include native, but he says, but my grandma always referred to us as Indians, and who am I to say that she was wrong? And
Exactly.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, that was that was what I meant by her referring to Indian as preferential. Just as those of us in the disability community choose our own descriptors. Her suggestion being that indigenous is global and currently accepted by a wide variety of people, and useful in that way to be inclusive.
And I do agree with you. I think indigenous is probably the best term that we can use. But it refers to other groups as well, all over the world. But thank you. Okay, and
Point of order, David.
Yes.
We're going to really wrap this part of the discussion up.
Okay, I'm going to finish up with the, are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, Kevin, is your hand still up?
It is. I think that, well, there's been a lot of discussion about the land acknowledgement motion. I am confused about whether we're going to add an agenda item to talk about that, and if so, where it would be,
It's
because I have a
not.
number of,
The board decided to put it.
I have several questions about that, and they're process questions. But
Okay.
it sounds like there may also be some content questions. So if that is going to be on the agenda at some place, then I'll hold those questions until then. If now's the time, then I'll go ahead. So if you could clarify, that would be great.
Well, actually, I don't believe it's going to be on the agenda because the board decided that it was not ready to put it on the agenda. And so I don't think later would be a good time to include it on the agenda, nor do I think now is the time to discuss it. It's not on the agenda yet. It was not ready for discussion or presentation. Okay, so we'll go on to the next
David,
item.
The questions that point of order. We've not been clear. I have several questions and I'm ready to address them right now.
And why is that a point of order? Why is that a point of order?
Because I'd like to be clear about our process here and make sure that the information that I think is really relevant gets an opportunity to be discussed. And if now's the time, then I'm ready.
Okay.
I've been withholding my comments because I wasn't clear.
Okay.
So I understand the board has had an opportunity to discuss the land acknowledgement. Diane did communicate to me that the board had some specific comments about improvements, and perhaps we've covered all of those. So that's my first question. Have we covered those, or is there something you might want to send to us in writing so we're clear? Or will they be in the minutes? I'm looking for clarity about how we understand.
Okay,
exactly
who is the person who had proposed the land acknowledgement at our last meeting?
Allison Trundle raised the issue. She's representing the committee and she is asking to have somebody else on the committee take the lead on that. I volunteered, I told her I would help her do that. And so that's another question of how do we transfer that responsibility? I assume we can do that easily and I'll just take over for now.
I think that that's something within your committee that you can take care of and respond to the board, but we did have concerns. I had asked where she got her information about there being a genocide and I got no response. And we also wanted someone from your committee to talk with Raina about the actual name of the tribe. And Raina has been a research librarian for many years, and we feel very comfortable with her research. And so we were hoping someone from your committee would get back to her as we had requested. So it's in your hands to take care of it, but it's not something we want to spend more time in our general meeting about. Okay?
Okay, just to be clear, the communication needs to get to me. So please forward any communication to me. I'll ask Allison
Okay.
if she could fill me in, but I haven't heard that's so specific. So that would be
Okay,
super helpful.
I may not have CC'd you on my email, so next time I would. Okay?
Please do that.
Thank you.
Also,
All right.
just to fill in for Raina, we the names of the tribes came from Bruce Hallman, who had, of course, been in touch with tribal elders of the Puyallup tribe. So just for
Point of
clarification.
order, we need to move on. We really.
Yeah,
need to-
we're moving on, Kevin. Okay, the next item on the agenda
Thanks.
is Captain Heather Volpe here to talk about Precinct 4 update regarding Vashon crimes, better signage on Ferry Hill, reminder for reporting of crimes and presentation on firearms laws on Vashon. Captain Volpe, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hey, am I able to share my screen to show a couple?
Yes,
If
hold
we
on a
use the power.
second. Nick, could you allow Heather to share her screen?
All right, thank you. Let me choose the right one. Do you guys see that?
Not yet.
Not yet. Let's try this. Share.
Yep, that's got it.
Is it in the presentation mode or is it still in my notes?
It is still in your notes.
How about now?
So we're seeing the whole PowerPoint window. So we see all the slides on the side as well as the main slide.
I love technology. Love it. Only have one open. All right. Well, we might just go with you can see my slides.
Go to, just throw the slideshow, yeah?
Yeah, no, I clicked that, but it's not going to the slideshow for you. My screen is showing the slideshow. Your screen does not.
Ooh.
Let me try that one more time. I apologize for that.
Screen shows it over to the left-hand side. We can go down.
Well, I can flip through the screens. So I will try one last time and then we're just going to deal with what I had. How's that sound? Screen. This one. Share. And
That should work.
do we get success?
We had, but now
Now we're just looking at your desktop.
Well, we don't want that now, do we? Okay.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
That
That's
works.
good enough.
Okay, I'm just not going to try and share my. Okay, so you can
That
see.
works.
All right, fantastic. So I can't see what you guys can see. So does it look like the presentation to you?
Yes.
It does.
We're
Slide
working.
1.
I am not a Zoom person. I'm a Teams person, so I'm trying to adapt. Thank you again for having me. I always enjoy coming here. There was a couple questions that came over since it's already been 2 months since you all saw my smiling face. And there's a couple questions that came up over that time. And one of it was some conversations about firearms and shooting on the island and what does that mean? So I've done a little research and I wanted to provide some information. So King County Code Title 12 is where we put our no shoot ordinances. So there's different areas within unincorporated King County that are deemed no shooting zone. It doesn't matter where you're at, you just cannot target shoot in that area. Vashon Island does not have any of that. So looking through King County Code Title 12, there are no shooting restrictions under the King County Code for Vashon-Maury Island. So what we have to do is we look into target shooting, because that's what you can legally do on Vashon. So where is target shooting permitted? And this is straight from the WAC, and I will give you that number at the end of this. I think what the question is we understand target shooting can happen, but what are the parameters of that? Where is it that it can happen safely and lawfully happen? And if you look over here, it does tell you specifically areas you can shoot. Recreation facilities. You guys have a fantastic shooting range that we sometimes utilize that's out on the island that has a really safe backdrop with earth and all the things that you need to safely shoot. What it says is where we can't shoot is person shall not shoot on, at, across, along, down, from, or within 500 feet of, and then it starts that list on that bottom third of the screen. Recreation facilities, residents, businesses, structures, others areas as restricted, areas designated or posting as no shoot. And again, the no shoot, posted no shoot would be the King County code of a no shooting zone. And then it stops about there for the areas that you do, but 500 feet is a rule of thumb. Now, so you've got the 500 feet, but what may be used as a target is also addressed in this code. It more or less tells you what you cannot use for target shooting. Vehicles, signs, appliances, furniture, glass, structures. So it's very clear on what you can't shoot at and what you must be shooting at to safely and lawfully do what they call target practice. And it continues, targets continue. Privately owned occupied structures are not okay to use for target shooting. Sometimes we think that's kind of self-explanatory, but it's good that we have it written down the WAC. And then explosives obviously would also be a problem with target shooting. So the summary of what I was understanding, I'll get your question in just a second, is understanding the limitations, the restrictions, and also the open areas that you can lawfully do target practicing. And Joanne, I see you already have a question, so I'd love to hear your question.
Oh, yes. Hi, thanks, Heather. I'm just wondering how to get a copy of the restrictions regarding shooting, because there is someone where I live who does do shooting and it's breaking the laws. And I'd like to be able to send that person the law.
I will put this in the chat, but that second bullet point, WAC 332-52145, that is the WAC code that we abide by. I'll put that in the chat, and you can just Google that and you'll see the exact same document that I showed. There's a little bit more in it, but this is really, I'll just copy it right now and send it to you while we're talking, so I make sure I get that done. Send it to you in just a second. And then also,
can you tell us what WAC stands for? Sorry to interrupt.
David might be able to tell me.
Yeah, Washington Administrative Code.
Thank you. What happens is we have our state laws, and the attorney can correct me if I'm wrong. We have our state laws, and as they work their way through courts, we get more of a description and more of definition of them, and they become WAC. That's how I understand it. Yes, Deanne?
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to note, I don't know what your first slide, who wrote that, or where, if it's an official document, but you might not be aware that it says that there are no shooting restrictions. And then it talks about no shoot zones, and it's super confusing.
How about there are no shooting area under? I was just putting a title for it. This phrase right here is straight from the King County Sheriff's and the King County actually's website. I was just trying to put a title saying, and I read it, I'm like, that doesn't read very well. The point is, in unincorporated, we have in our CAD system, we have a layers of our maps, and we can see specifically where no shoot areas are. So when I worked in rural county, I'd get that all the time, and I'd pull up my map and I'd know, is it a no shoot area or is it an open shoot area? And that's all that was for.
Well, you might just say there are no restrictions in shooting currently on the island. I just really struggled with it when you first presented it, so I thought that
there are no restrictions. Yeah, we're getting it taken care of.
But I would indicate that we're referring to restrictions under King County Code. We're not talking about restrictions under the hunting laws, okay, which are different. And those are state codes as opposed to the King County Code. Okay.
Thank you.
Does that look
That's
better?
very helpful.
Also, just additional information for the limitations for target shooting. No person shall target shoot 1/2 hour after sunset or 1/2 hour before sunrise. So 10 p.m. midnight shooting is not a thing. It needs to be during daylight hours for obvious reason. You need to see where you're shooting. You need to know where your backdrop is. So that was just another tidbit. Any other questions about the firearms and shooting on the island?
Captain Volpe, I think there was some concern about hunting as opposed to target shooting. And so they were talking about discharge of a firearm in the course of hunting. There was someone who was shooting at a deer that was like across someone's driveway.
Yes, you can't shoot even hunting over a roadway. And I think that was covered, even if it's hunting or target shooting for obvious reasons. But no, I want to ask a little bit about I don't have the information on hunting because we don't enforce hunting. That's
right.
Like you said, it's state and wildlife. So I was focusing more on the target shooting and the shooting areas, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
What I can do is let me follow up on that and get you guys some information and post it for the council to get some more clear direction. But even for hunting, you shouldn't be able to shoot from a car and you shouldn't be able to shoot over a roadway. I know that off the top of my head, just from working some rural areas, because that's not safe.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
And we did have a presentation from Fish and Wildlife about hunting. So
Okay.
I think people need to understand that there are two different jurisdictions involved. There's the State Department of Fish and Wildlife that enforces the rules with regard to hunting. And then there's the King County Sheriff's Department, which enforces the rules about target shooting. And what Captain Volpe was saying is that the King County Code itself does not have any rules with regard to Vashon and shooting, but there are other rules in the WACS, the Washington Administrative Code, with regard to shooting. Okay.
It gets confusing when you're like, I just want an answer, but you're like, that's this jurisdiction and they're specialized in it. And I can appreciate the many angles and you're like, I just want an answer. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the ferry line. As we know, Vashon Highway going towards the northbound, going towards the ferry, there's a backup. That's what happens. And we're finding people going left of center. I also know there's been some concerns of marked patrol cars going left of center. I was just having a staff meeting today, reassuring my sergeants that that's not acceptable. 103rd is your great option. And so I'm going to be messaging that again to my team here. We do have some deputies who don't work that very often. And so my assumption is they're not aware of 103rd, but they will be. So what you guys want to know is I've been working with King County Roads. I was just meeting with them today. And then again, these are pictures of the intersection of 103rd where we want people to utilize that if they need to get down to the ferry dock or get past the ferry or come back around so they can safely go south on the highway. And what I've circled here are the areas I've asked for more signage. I think we lack signage there. We've discussed that before, making people more aware of that option. So in that bottom left corner, you can see on that intersection, I'm like, this is a great place to have a very vivid sign saying, take a left here if you're dropping people off, if you're trying to get down to the docks. Along with even at 103rd and Vashon Highway, something more right there to also remind people to take that left turn. So we have a service request in. I talked one-on-one. They have no issue. They see this as a positive thing going forward. It's just kind of working out what these signs are going to look like. I'm the point of contact to ensure that they're very visible and updated. As we all know, this is the one sign to tell them to take a left, which is very limited. It doesn't really give information, and I don't think it provides enough information. we need more. I think you guys know we need more, especially for those amazing visitors that come out to the island that aren't on that highway very often. They are just locked into, I'm getting to the ferry and not realizing maybe there's another route that might be a safer or better route. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Any questions or any concerns about that?
No, but thank you for bringing it, for being the point person on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great.
I have a very strong traffic background. So I see a lot of things that can be improved in this area, but also just to help for the safety of the operations, because left of center and those curves is really unsafe. And I want to make sure we make sure our walking, our cars, our bikes, everyone's safe out there. I also just shot up here just for information. Oh, go ahead, Evie.
Thanks, Captain. On this particular slide here, would there need to be some sort of ADA exception indicated?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Would there need to be like an indicator that there was an ADA exception for people who are, for whom mobility is a challenge? Are they permitted to go forward on the road right to the ferry dock? Or do they, get dropped off at the intersect? I mean, I just don't know the logistics of it. So someone who's using a wheelchair or a walking frame or that kind of thing.
The focus on this is just to get people diverted to use 103rd is really the focus on this. And as we get closer to the ferry and getting individuals onto the ferry which I hate saying, is Washington State Ferry, and working with them on what the options are for individuals that have any kind of mobility challenges. To make sure they're accommodated that way. First, our goal is not to have people drive left of center, and making sure it's very clear that the options for dropping individuals off or going to the park and ride are taking a left on 103rd.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Nick.
Yeah, just a piece of clarification. The issue is that folks come down Vashon Highway, and if they're trying to get to the ferry dock, instead of taking the left onto 103rd, they continue on Vashon Highway 99. And then when the ferry lane shifts from the shoulder to actually in the road, then folks go, as Captain Volpe says, left of center, which is into oncoming traffic in order to continue down to the ferry dock, which is wild. So ADA, all of those folks should be going on 103rd anyway. So this is not that.
But that's a really good point that I can add to the county DOT for those signs, to have some of that information presented for that reason. And also a little bit of more signage past this area. So when they do have I would love to see stanchions down the center line right there. So when people get there and we have the end of the ferry waiting line, they don't have an option to go left of center, So there's things that maybe we can do creatively to help reduce that, also just by, like, on this left turn, there are some stanchions right there. They're supposed to be kind of alerting. They're old, they're dirty, half of them have fallen down. Updating those, we can do certain things to help accentuate that intersection and make people more mindful of their options. So that's what we're going to work on and trying to achieve. What I also have is a couple issues come up and wanting to know some statuses. So what I've done is go to a couple graphs on 3 of the higher questions I get about with car prowls, burglaries, and vandalism, and see where we're at right now with the with Vashon. And what I did is, this is the comparison from last year to this year. The yellow line, I should say the bright yellow line, is our current year. And then that orangish color was 2021. So these are reported burglaries, both residential and commercial. And so we can see in the second month in February, we spiked up with 6, and then it's reduced and kind of stayed steady, which is unfortunate because we don't want to have any crime, but it has been staying steady with those 2 compared to last year. To see what those totals are. I've also done this with vehicle prowls. Again, we had a spike there in February, burglaries, car prowls. It came back down, but again, that bright yellow is going to be our current reports that are generated, and the orange color was last year's comparison. And the final one is the vandalism, which June, we went up there. It came back down in, oh, I'm sorry, that was June of 2021, the yellow. So that's, again, kind of showing you what we're getting reported to us on the island. And I know there's more going on, and all I can do, and I know I'm a broken record, is reporting that. Reporttosheriff.org is a great way to report cars getting broken into or vandalisms is an option. And also just calling 911, saying I'd like to report this incident. And your friendly King County deputies are happy to come talk to you and take those reports. Sometimes we think, oh, just some change was taken, or oh, it's just some spray paint, I'm just going to paint over it. But it's really nice to have this information so we can have things better reflect what's going on in the community, so we can better serve that. All right. So that's all I had for sharing with the screen. Are there any questions or concerns that you guys want to talk to me about that's going on the island? Follow up on anything?
There was the issue about the parking lot, the park and ride lot.
Mm-hmm.
That was an issue that I was wondering if you could talk about.
Yes, I've reached out to Metro and hands are going up. So I'll address what David was just asking me to, and then I'll talk to Janet, and then Jeff, I'll talk to you guys too. So what we had an incident where an individual was residing within their vehicle in a park and ride lot that's owned by the Metro property, King County Metro. And there were some challenges happening with disruptions in the neighborhood, some concerns about community concerns. Calls were being had. We were able to work with a variety of entities providing resources, opportunities, and options for individuals that were impacted by this, living in the car and having some restrictions in resources. And then some incidents were reported, an arrest was made, and that individual is still in King County Jail right now. The vehicles were removed from the property and taken off of the property. There is some, like we were just talking about, hunting and target practices. There's multiple jurisdictions, and King County Metro has policy and procedures in how to handle situations, whether it be on Vashon, Federal Way, unincorporated. There's certain steps and procedures that need to be followed before they can take next steps, which is offering resources, offering support, offering help. And all of those things were done in maybe not the time frame people would want, but we do have to follow these procedures and policies to ensure we're consistent with all community members that we serve throughout King County. So that's what happened, but the individual is being held right now under investigation and is still in the King County Jail. Janet, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Back in early August, there was a brutal assault that happened, and the assailant wasn't arrested, and wondering why and why charges haven't been filed. What is going on with that? The case, it was mentioned in the paper. And so I was just wondering if there's follow-up with that. And mostly because I have a vested interest. I was not only an eyewitness, I was basically a catalyst for this. And at no point has King County Sheriff's deputies contacted me for a statement or to get any evidence from me about what happened. So I'm wondering what's going on with that, and why was somebody who admitted to a brutal crime that broke bones in somebody's face, why they haven't been arrested.
I believe I know what assault you're talking about, but there's no broken bones. I can say, are we talking about the grocery store?
No.
Okay, sorry. Hold on a second, because I am not familiar.
King County Incident Report C220-25783.
Hold on. What was that again? 22.
Yeah, 025783.
I will answer the next question while I'm pulling that one up to answer that question. How's that sound? And multitask. I'm not sharing. And this can maybe be a conversation for you and I to have offline as well, because if it's an open investigation, I'm very limited to what I can discuss, obviously in an open forum, but I would like to connect with you one-on-one as well.
If you want to send me your contact information via the chat, that would be wonderful. I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah, I do see that. I'm just pulling it up initially. I do see that it's open, and I do see that it's assigned to a detective. So I can say that there is more going on. But yeah, I'll put in the chat my email. Please feel free to get a hold of me and we can have a conversation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Jack, Skeffington? I don't know how I know you're the next one, and I see the iPhone hand up.
It's actually Beverly that has the question.
Okay.
We've been you and I have written back and forth the email about trying to get a local meeting set up in our neighborhood, and that was one of my questions. I haven't heard back from you or from a sheriff, like you said might happen. So that's one thing. But at the
you muted yourself.
At the neighborhood meeting that we had, somebody was talking about how they were walking toward the forest in Docton one day, and there's a parking area, and they witnessed what they were pretty sure was a drug deal going on. There was things on the seat of a car, and there was another car or two in there. And so what does a person do when they see something like that? Who do we call when we see cars in certain places all the time doing what looks like suspicious stuff? How can we get the patrol officers patrolling these areas that we ourselves are seeing activity at?
One is calling 911 and creating a call that way. But suspicious activity, you can also do that report to sheriff.org. You can do that anonymously. And what that does is the sergeants go through it and then assign it to a deputy to follow up on. And then we can track what has been done with that. That's the first thing. And then we do have, the calling 911, you can call a non-emergency number, but it's the same people that answer. So just call 911, say it's a non-emergency, unless there is an emergency going on. Let them know it's suspicious activity. They'll create a call for service and dispatch a Vashon car to that. Or you can go to report-to-sheriff.org and report the same information. You'll have immediate response or a timely response by calling 911. Go into report-to-sheriff.org. It might take a day or two because it goes through a computer system that has to be approved and then sent to the sergeant. So there'll be a delay in it. You can go both. You can go 911, this is what's happening right now, and then follow up with report-to-sheriff.org. If you report it more than one time, that's fine too. We just want to make sure we get that information.
Okay. And then just in terms of being proactive, we've had a number of gas siphonings happening in our neighborhood and things like that. And so do you have some suggestions for what we can do as neighbors to, I don't know, what would your suggestion be for neighbors who are feeling insecure about these things that are happening?
With gas siphoning, getting a locking gas cap can be very helpful. That prevents people from actually accessing your gas. I know one of my vehicles, it doesn't even have a gas cap, so you can't even, prevent it that way. But it does have a mechanism that it only opens from interior of the car. So doing things to help prevent it from happening is very helpful. That motion lights, things that you do just normally, calling in people that are unusual or that you're seeing that are not normally in your neighborhood. You know your neighborhood, right? And when you see that person, you're like, hey, that person's kind of new and they're walking around with a gas can. That seems unusual. Those are kind of good things to call in. But again, the locking option to prevent it from happening to begin with is where my first step would be, which is unfortunate. It's an extra cost. It's an inconvenience in ways that you should be able to park your car and not have your gas siphoned. I've been the victim of gas siphoning, both in my patrol car, my personal car, and put locking gas caps on all of those, and it prevented it from happening again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think, I don't know your name, but you're the iPhone user. You don't have a name on yours. And then we'll do Mark, and then we'll do Joanne. Yep.
Cell phone user. I had my hand up. I don't. Okay. So I was just going back. It's been up for a bit. So I was going back to the Thriftway incident. And I will say that this is a comment that is often made by sheriffs. And I think it's a comment that needs to stop. What we often are told are, oh, I don't think I would press. That girl was told that she shouldn't press charges.
Mhm.
She was knocked on her head
Mhm.
and told to press charges by the sheriff, because we're a small community. That was assault.
Mhm.
You know, and I think that we hear that over and over, that, oh, you know, I wouldn't bother. We don't want our sheriffs to be assigned to this crime because it takes us away. We get rotating officers, and then they don't want to be committed to anything on the island because it takes them away from their desk load over there. That's been repeated over and over, and that needs to stop. We need to be treated as equals.
I agree. And I will say that I am aware of your concerns, and it is being reviewed through our internal investigations unit, because we do have expectations and we have accountability.
Okay.
And what I want to make sure is that everyone is treated fairly and that everyone is heard. And it's not my decision, nor should it be a deputy's decision whether someone chooses or chooses not to press charges or be a victim. Sometimes we have times where we're like, do you want to be victim? They're like, no, I don't want to be. And you're like, seriously? Like, we're like wanting, but we need to stop and we need to respect someone, just as the same as if somebody wants to be a victim. It's not our place to say, are you sure? That's not okay. That's not okay with me. And that's my expectation of my deputies. And so we're addressing that, and we're going to have counseling, training, and make a clear understanding of my expectations of my deputies. All right, Mark, you're next. You've been waiting so patiently.
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
I can.
There's a vehicle, a car that's been abandoned in my neighborhood. It's been vandalized since then. It was tagged by the sheriff's office over a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it just continues to get vandalized, windows broken out, et cetera. I just wonder what's the policy on towing it away?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my email on the chat. And so anyone who wants to reach out to me one-on-one, I'd love for that to happen. And for Mark, shoot me an email if you have a license plate, because I don't want to do that over the meeting. I can look up exactly where the status is and what deputy was assigned to it, because I can find all that information and get a follow-up on it.
Okay, there are no tags on the car.
Well, then just give me the location and description of it and I can find it. I believe I can.
Yeah, will do. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Joanne.
Hi, Heather. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you said that you're going to respond to that incident in the grocery store. I think that was a serious assault. And to me, there's a lot of people in the community that feel unsafe if that's the response that the sheriff gave in that incident. And it makes an unsafe community. I mean, that is a terrible thing. And I'm hoping that you're going to follow up with that. And I'm glad to hear people talk about it. It was disturbing. Thank you.
Yes, it's being addressed. Jeanne, keep saying.
Thank you. Thank you. And just to follow up on, it's a twofold question. It's partly related to Beverly's question, because I work with her in the Docton neighborhood, but also these general comments. I think there's an issue, at least I'll speak for myself, but I think it's more broad. We don't know what to expect from our local sheriff. And we don't know if we've called 10 times about one house where we think they're dealing drugs, what will be the service that we receive for that 11th call. And so it would be real helpful if you could help us, but you also might want to consider messaging the community about what can we expect from our local sheriff's office. And so that when people like Beverly and I are talking to our neighbors, we can explain that if you call this number, this is what you can expect. That would be a big step forward, I think.
And that I've been in this community for gosh, 6 months now. And my expectations is when you call 911, you get a timely professional response from the King County Sheriff's Office. That's my expectations, whether you've called one time or you've called 25 times about the same residents. That is my expectation. That's what people should expect to receive. Now, if we have multiple calls, and I have been told by the deputies that whenever I seem to go to the island, the call volume goes up. They're like, I don't know what you do, Captain, but you make the call volume go up. Could you not come to the island? But at the same time, is if we don't have calls pending, we should be able to get to you in a timely manner. The day that I went out there to meet with a group, it was a busy afternoon and there was calls pending. It was going to take a little bit longer than normal to check in on the people who have called, right? But my expectation on that island is a timely professional response. And that's the best I can tell you is what my expectation is. And that should be your expectation as a community member. If we are not serving that, or you're not getting a timely response, I encourage you to call 911 and say, I'd like to talk to the sergeant. I'd like to have a conversation with the sergeant, because that sergeant will call you and say, hey, we have this going on. Sometimes we can have critical incidents happening somewhere else in the precinct, and the Vashon cards are utilized to help organize things and structure things. It's common over in North Precinct as well. I would be the North Bend car and something was happening in the Woodinville area, and there are things that I can task to help support that in progress incident in another situation. I'm not saying that's happening every time if you don't get a timely response. I'm just giving an example of something that could be happening. So if you call and you're not satisfied with the services provided, I encourage you to call either 911 or call the non-emergency number. I'll put that in the chat too. And just simply say, hey, I'm on Vashon. I'd really love to talk to the sergeant that's on duty. And the sergeant's going to give you a call and have a conversation with you. And they can discuss and give timely feedback to that deputy of what's going on. Because while we're having this conversation today, you might be concerned about something that happened 3 or 4 days ago, and it's ideal to have that timely feedback, right? So if it's something that's occurring, it's okay to ask to talk to the sergeant. It's okay to say, hey, I'm not satisfied with the services provided, or I'm still waiting. It's been 45 minutes and I'm just curious why. And that's okay too. It's okay to ask questions and to have the expectations that I have, you should have as well.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm putting the non-emergency line number in the chat. All right, Mark, and then back to my iPhone friend. Or Mark, your hand's still up. Do you have a new question, or was that from the last one?
I'm sorry, I didn't lower my hand.
It's okay. Look it, we're back, iPhone. I need to know your name so I don't keep calling you iPhone.
iPhone is Micaela or Mika. Yeah.
Okay, Mika. Okay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that, on a positive note, let's give you guys some positive feedback. The person that was in the parking lot that was homeless, that threatened somebody, that was actually my son. And he did call the police, and he had a photo of the threat and video, and they arrested that person. And that's the person who's still being held. So there are times when people do get arrested, and it was pretty impressive. It took 4 cops to get him in the car. Yeah. Yes, he doesn't like to, well, he chooses his own path, and he's not as cooperative as one would want. Yeah. But I think some people on the island are familiar with them. I just wanted to give you guys credit with that. And, mental illness is an issue in many cases, and I'm very open about, I have a son who's schizophrenic, and it's when people are mentally ill and not taking medication, it's a very difficult and sad thing, but you guys handled it really well. And I just wanted to say that. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I am very glad. Oh, and on the 2, somebody asked me about the hit and runs that have happened, the 2 fatal hit and runs on the island. I wanted to give follow-up that I talked with our major crash team on Friday, and through tips from the island, 2 people are in custody for both of those offenses. So we have in custodies arrests for both of those offenses, and it was based on tips from the island. So I just want to make sure I shared that with everybody. Anything else that I can answer?
Well, I don't see any hands.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me.
And thank you for taking the hot seat. You do it so, you're.
Hey, you know what? I enjoy it. Make sure we're on top of everything.
Yeah. No, we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, our next item on the agenda is old business, and we're now ready to dissolve the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council because we've already incorporated the Vashon-Maury Community Council, which will be our 501c4 organization as opposed to the old 501c3. The board has met and approved a resolution to dissolve the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council, and it's now time for a vote on it. And the motion was, we move to dissolve the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council. So is there anyone who would like to discuss this issue? Well, I don't see any hands raised, so it looks like it's time for a vote. I don't think we set it up on the Zoom itself, so what we'll need to do is all those in favor, please go to your reaction button on your Zoom and raise your hand. And if you are on phone, please let us know your vote. And if you don't have a reaction button, raise your hand so that we can see it. Okay, and we'll do our best to count votes.
And we do know that John and Camille are both members, and there are 2 votes there. And we know that Jack and Beverly are both members, and we have 2 votes there as well.
6, 7.
Can you see my vote on the phone?
Yes.
11,
Okay.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18. Okay, Nick, are you counting also? I counted 18.
I've got 19. Susan McCabe gave a thumbs up, which I
Oh,
assume
okay,
was
okay.
a
That's 19 then.
clap from Kathleen Fitch. That might be 20.
Okay, and all those opposed, please raise your hands. And lower your hands if you don't want to vote that way. So I see Don Crane and Luke. Oh, excuse me. That hand was just left up there. Doesn't look like anyone's voting against it. So I believe it carries 20-0. Okay. Well, I want to thank you folks. It's been a short reign as president of the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council, but you've just kind of, taken away my job here. But it's been a pleasure, and we're in good hands. So the next is the plan of dissolution. And there is a motion, and it's pending approval by the Washington Attorney General. We approved the following plan of dissolution. 1, a fee of $300 cash will be given to the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council by the Vashon-Maury Community Council in consideration of use of the website, mailing list, and logo. Number 2, since there are no outstanding debts of the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council, the $300 shall be donated to Vashon Household, a 501c3 nonprofit. Okay, is there anyone who would like to discuss this motion? Okay, well then I would like to conduct a vote on this motion as well. All those in favor, please raise your hands. I have 19. Okay. All those, lower your hands now. All those opposed to this dissolution plan, please raise your hands. I see iPhone 4 has a hand raised, and who is iPhone 4?
iPhone 4, if you need to unmute yourself, do *6 so that you can
No, I think that's Mika, and I think her phone is just sitting on the table. Oh, it's John.
No,
Hi,
it's
John.
That's
John.
not me.
Sorry.
It looks
Okay,
like
very
the
good.
hand was withdrawn. Okay, that also passes unanimously. All right. Well, then moving on to the community update, Suzanne McCabe will be announcing a presentation on septic system and well safety workshop for Islanders. Susan?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate the time, and it's really not my time. It is the time for Eunbi Lee, who is from King County Public Health. So Eunbi, take it away.
Thank you, Susan. I have prepared for a presentation. I was wondering if Diane, would you mind sharing the screen?
Yes, I'm ready to share my screen for
Awesome.
your presentation, and you can just let me know when I should move on to the next slide.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be great. Well, hi everybody. We're going to talk a lot about poop or fecal pollution, and we're hoping that that is not present in our water, including drinking water and swim water where we swim, paddle or walk, beachcomb. So, want to make sure that we're taking care of poop from various sources so that that is not happening. And that's my main point. And Diane, I think I'm ready for this slide. Thank you. Awesome. So for a while, I would like to give some background on this project that we have been working on at Vashon, and that is called Healthy Beach Project, and it is very much focused on the North Covos Passage area. And yeah, we're working with the community and residents and properties to make sure that their septic systems are working, and if there's any guidance that we could provide, then that is what we're doing. And there's some rebates as well as financial assistances that are going on, so I would like to share some information about that. And if you want more in detail, then I can share some more, share our website for that. So Diane, I think we can go to the next slide. Yeah, we just King County and public health and the Department of Natural Resources and Park, sorry about that, are working together with you to find and fix problems in terms of fecal pollution, such as from pet waste or manure from farms or wildlife congregation waste, or some failing septic systems as well. And we can move on to the next slide. Yes, I think that is fine. And
I just
Diane,
want to mention, when I try to show this as a slideshow, I am unable to move to the next slide.
Oh.
I try that one more time and see if I can do that.
Or maybe you can minimize the notes so that you can click the line, and then I think you got it. Yes.
No. There, that should help, and
Yes.
then I can enlarge it.
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
that should help a little bit. Sorry
Thank you.
about that, guys.
No. Oh, and we can move on to slide 3.
Yes.
And this shows that our King County officer is doing water quality sampling, and on the map you're seeing the general area of North Cobos Passage, and there are 2 Department of Health water sampling sites that had some high fecal pollution, and this graph of fecal pollution, especially tracing the E. coli is last year's, so it is a little bit outdated, but and we were concerned about these 2 sites where it had over 200 counts per 100 milliliter of water. That is a little bit concerning for the high fecal pollution rate, but this is being continuously traced through the DNRP's effort, and it could sometimes be not just failing septic systems, but it could be that some days there are maybe more geese or more wildlife congregation that had to be on there while they were sampling the water. But at the same time, we're very much putting a lot of attention to make sure that we are tracing the sources of fecal pollution so that it is not present in the stream, in the freshwater stream. And 400 of studies and projects involving fecal pollution, fecal coliform bacteria. The main causes of elevated levels of bacteria are often human sources. And regarding this, King County has previously done bacterial and DNA testing of freshwater beach that flows into the outer quartermaster harbor. And it turned out that it has mostly the human sources of fecal pollution. So we want to understand that there is no failing septic systems, and if there are, we want to work with the properties to pose that problem in a more productive way. And we can move on to the next slide. So in regards to this map that we are seeing is the status of septic systems in the North Cobos Passage, and the red, the colors may be a little bit daunting, but this is just seeing that we are trying to understand that with the correlation between the shoreline water quality, which is the correlation between the shoreline water quality and the failing septic system. So we're working with the properties again to do it. And as a property owner or renter, what you can do is to use the grants or money or funding sources that we have for repairs and replacements. And there are also additional grants of up to $5,000 that are available for repairs of septic systems. And repairs is oftentimes for only failing septic systems. And to be honest, we don't want to actually go to use this money because we don't want our failing septic systems to fail, because it is a lot of money to fix it. And of course, there are financial resources, but we are trying to encourage people to work with us to maintain it, just like taking the car for oil change or those types of household maintenance. So it is, and we also have some resources for that as well. And that is one of the things that you can utilize. And we want to ensure that pet waste is not left on walks or in your yards. And we're encouraging people to attend workshops or events. And I'm going to come back to this in a bit. And also, lastly, very importantly, as you can see, we are doing water quality sampling on the streams that flow into Puget Sound. So help us by letting us to access to your shoreline properties so that we can collect some waters there too. And Diane, we can move on to the next slide. I would also like to, sorry. I think we can move on to the next slide, Diane. That is okay.
Diane's her photo is frozen, so she may be having some connectivity issues.
Okay, sounds good. Yes, no worries. Yeah, and we have talked about some, some problems, so to speak, but this year, sorry, this summer, June of 2022, we received a great news that green is spreading in Vashon Island. So that is in the east side of Vashon-Maury Island, in Dolphin Point, Glen Acres, Clahany, and Summerhurst. Those 4 areas are reopened from elevated from enhanced water quality. So that's really good news that I wanted to pinpoint and share out with people. And that is, of course, from all the efforts from the residents and the visitors who try to make sure that their pet waste is picked up, as well as septic system is maintained. So wanted to make sure that this green line that is spreading is very encouraging, and we really appreciate all the participation from the residents too. And we can move on to the next slide. And I see a hand from Joanne, and I'll get back to you. And as I said earlier, what you can do, one of the main thing is to participate at events or workshop. And one of the things that I have been working with Susan McCabe here is Vashon Septic and Well workshop. And it is going to be via Zoom on October 19th. And it will cover various topics, including geology of Vashon and groundwater budget, as well as how to take care of well and septic from a very practical point. And it'll have a lot of question and answer sessions where people can choose where they want their questions to be answered. And it is going to be a very fruitful opportunity for Vashon people to share their questions answered, as well as kind of share the idea that septic and well conversation can be not just boring, but helpful, as well as sometimes fun too. So yeah, this workshop is very helpful, and I would like to advertise this as much as possible. And Susan has been doing fantastic job of not just creating and developing all the materials, but also planning on advertising at various places in Vashon, including coffee shops or libraries, or Voice of Vashon radio. You'll be able to hear the advertisement, as well as Beachcomber newspaper article will be produced. And I'll be there at Vashon Farmers Market on October 8th to meet with people and talk about the workshop, as well as having a little bit of Q&A session as well. So that'll be very interesting. And as much as we know, and the county understands that Vashon is heavily on septic systems, and we have been working very closely with all of you to understand the issues and kind of resolve any problems if there is any. So this will be a great chance that we can reconnect in as well. And that is all. That is it for me. I I think the reason why I wanted to be at this committee meeting tonight is so that we can spread this workshop as much as possible through social media. And I see that on the chat. And thank you for that. And also want to kind of share this idea of there is a workshop about this, and it could be not just informational, but it could be something fun and very beneficial for people to participate. So I'm really, in a long run, I'm really hoping that talking about septic is a plain thing, and it's not something that we want to avoid, or we want to try not to discuss about with community members. So I want to make it sort of more fun and engaging. So that is what I am hoping to get from this workshop. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, Susan, and also put our address to register for the workshop too. So thank you for that. And if my job is the education and outreach coordinator about septic system programs. So if you have any questions about how to communicate with us, then please feel free to contact me, and we can move on to the last slide. And there's my, I can put my contact information in the chat as well for people. And Joanne, I would like to come back to your question. And I think
Hi,
we
yeah.
can, yeah.
Thanks. I think that that's great to hear about that workshop. And I just wondered if you guys had heard of something called a pet digester, which I just heard about somewhat recently, for people with animals to put their animal waste in. I guess it's like a septic system for animals that you build simply on your property. And that information would be really helpful, I think, during this workshop, I think. Yeah. Anyone with a pet.
Thanks for sharing that resource. Have not yet touched on that topic, but this is really interesting. I would love to
Yeah.
dig in a little bit more and then share. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining us, and for your presentation.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much.
So do you have like any potty humor that you develop in this field, or, you know?
I don't have good humor, but since my work is about outreach, I have a lot of booths set up. So I titled my booth as Poop Up Booth instead of Pop Up Booth. So
Okay.
that's kind of like, that's as much as I can be creative. But I did purchase a poop emoji hat so that I can be the poop lady of the farmers market, or the events that I attend to. So yes,
well, great.
you'll see me in poop hat.
Okay, we appreciate it, and thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Okay, and so the next meeting date for the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council, we're gone, we're done, we're dissolved. So no more meetings. So we're going to only have the Vashon-Maury Community Council meetings. And the next one, I'll let Diane, the president of the Vashon-Maury Community Council, let you know about that. So I'd like to adjourn our last meeting of the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council at this point, and we can move on to our next meeting.
Okay, thank you, David. I just want to let everybody know, especially David, my car hotspot has been shutting down, and I've been having to come back on all the time. So I turned off my video, hoping that will help, but I may disappear. And if I disappear and I don't come back, David, I'm hoping that you will, as vice president of the new organization, would
Okay.
take over for me. I'm running it.
Not a problem, Diane. I'll be here.
The car
Okay.
was doing it. So I'm in an electric car that has a Wi-Fi hotspot set up. It's brand new, Chevy Bolt. And it worked really well that first, well, from 7 to 8:30, it worked beautifully. And now for some reason, it doesn't want to keep doing it. So fingers crossed that we'll get through the rest of this agenda of this meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So I would like to, we have a beginning website for the new community council, and I'm going to put that in the chat so that people can see that there's a lot of work that needs to be done on that website. So we'll have both websites going for a while too, for people and information on next meetings. And here's something that's very important. Elections for new board members is taking place in October. The board is elected every even year for 2-year terms, and we need more people to run for the new board. If you have at least 3 hours a week to give to this amazing cause for our community, you can make a big difference. Self-nomination forms have been sent to people on our mailing list, and they're on the new website. The self-nomination forms to run for the board must be submitted to Gavin Covite no later than October 1st. And that is in the form itself. So if you will go to the new website, you will see the form there. And any of you who are on the email list have already received your form. So please consider running for the board. And on voting, voting will take place in October. As I mentioned, we're going to use ranked choice voting as we did the last election. You must be a member to vote. And we've talked about membership and how important it is. And you can contact me to become a member. And so next we have new meeting dates. So this is important. I just want to double check and see if anyone has any hands up. No. Okay. Very good.
Melvin's got his hand up.
Oh, Melvin. Yes, Melvin, please speak.
Yeah, thanks. As a member of the election committee, which is Dan Schuler, Terry Sullivan, and myself, when will we have a good, complete membership list that we can use to set this up?
We have a good membership list. It's never complete because people are continuing to join the organization. We got several new members tonight, in fact, but I have already sent out the membership list and I will send out additions to it. Have you not received it, Melvin?
Yes, I received the one with 142 members.
And that's how many members we had at that time.
Yeah.
Since then, we probably have 10 more members.
Okay, so at some point we'll want to have the most recent one when we set this up.
Quite right. Right before you send that in to the organization who's going to do it, let me know and I will make sure you have the most current list.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Melvin, thank you. Thank you very, very much, by the way, for taking this job on. It's very, very important to the organization, and you have such wonderful experience in working with this in the past. Okay, so now back to new meeting dates. Because we've had a lot of problems associated with Monday night meetings, primarily inability of King County employees to attend our meetings, and also running into having people out of town having to call in on Zoom, kind of like me tonight. The interim board for the new community council has approved new meeting days to begin in December. The new days are proposed for the first and third Wednesdays of the month. These days present the fewest conflicts with holidays, and they provide the best timing for the beachcomber to cover our meetings. So I would like someone from the board to please make a motion about that. And it's in your agenda, your internal agenda. If someone would please make the motion. Anyone from the board can look at their internal agenda. Okay, thank you. John, would you have your hand up? Would you please share this?
I would like to make a motion that we conduct our meetings the first and third Wednesday of every month, starting in December.
And may I have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
David has seconded that motion. Now, we don't vote on this tonight. We make the motion and second it, and we discuss it. And then the actual vote, so the organization and the members have plenty of time to think about it, and people who aren't here tonight have plenty of time to be aware that we're voting on this for the vote to take place at our October meeting. So I'm opening it up now for comments and questions about this change of our meeting night. And Melvin, your hand is up. Did you want to comment on this?
Yes,
Or
please.
did you not?
I just wanted
Okay,
to
very
make a
good.
clarification here. My
Yes.
understanding is the first and third Wednesdays, the first Thursday or Wednesday is a board meeting, right?
Yes, that's correct. The first
It's
Wednesday
not
of the
an
month.
open general meeting, it's a board meeting.
That's right.
Third Wednesday is the general
The
membership.
general.
Thank you.
Yes, that's quite right. Just like it has been in the past, first and third Monday nights, first and third Wednesdays. And it's because the first Wednesday will be the meeting of the board, which members are certainly welcome to attend, but you can't, it's mostly to listen in if you wish. And then the third Wednesday of the month will be the membership meeting. Jack, did you want to say something?
I did just want to bring some information to you that the Vashon Healthcare District also meets on the first and third Wednesday of each month from 6 until 8 p.m. It is a public meeting twice a month, and they're involved in some serious discussions these days, and I wouldn't want to draw people away from those discussions. Just for information.
Yes, thank you, Jack. It is absolutely impossible not to conflict with some other organization, no matter what we do. And it would be unfortunate for people to have to split their time between those two meetings if they wanted to both attend. But as you can see, we have, not a huge number of people in the community like to attend meetings of either the health district or the community council. So we have a lot of population to draw on to keep get more people to attend both of those meetings at different times. Thank you, Jack. Hunter, you have your hand up. And you're muted.
Now I'm unmuted. Thank you. I'm happy to move from Mondays because we were meeting on Labor Day, which was a day that was, earned by people working, and also on Martin Luther King's birthday, which also is important to celebrate those people and those issues. It is going to be make a problem because the Equity Committee, which spent a long time finding the days they could meets on the same days, and so it would make somebody who's a liaison unable to fulfill their job of being at two meetings at one time. And they begin their meeting at 6:30, if I'm correct, by that, Kevin. And so I just want to point that out, that would be sort of make an impossible job for somebody. So I'd have to vote against it, even though I support leaving from Monday. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Hunter, for sharing that. It is a very difficult choice to make to do this vote, and we'll see how many people, whether it passes or not, or whether it goes to a different day, or what happens. But this is our initial discussion about it with the membership, and we want to be sure that people have a chance to talk about it. Debbie Jackson, would you like to share something about this?
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks to Jack for bringing that up about the first and third Wednesday are also Vashon Health Care District meeting days, but the time for their meeting has changed to 6, so that makes it a little bit more possible for people to attend. I also talked to the some of the people on our outreach committee with the healthcare district that it might be possible to work out a more regular report to the community council about what's happening with the healthcare district, because there often are not that many people that attend the healthcare district. And as he said, there's some really important issues that will be coming up with the healthcare district. So it probably can work out to be better if it was a different day, but I think it could be worked out. So I'm sure you've looked at Thursdays and Tuesdays as well. And I'm sure there's conflicts every day, like you say. So, thanks.
Thank you,
Monday
Debbie.
is not a good day.
Yeah, thank you very much, Debbie. That's a very good idea to have the healthcare district provide more regular updates to at our meetings. I think that could be very helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. And we will need to be sure in the notes that that gets mentioned. Okay. Kevin?
Yes, thanks, Diane. I did also want to mention what Hunter mentioned, that, yeah, the Equity, Social Justice, Inclusion Committee does meet from 6 to 7:30 on the first and third Wednesdays. I suspect that if the board meeting continues to meet at 7:30 on the proposed first Wednesday, then that does not create a conflict. If the general council meeting is still to start at 7, that would create a conflict. It is unknown whether or not moving the equity committee earlier in the day on that Wednesday would create a hardship for members who may be working. So I certainly hope you would take that into consideration.
So moving it, could you repeat that last part about timing for people who are working?
If the board and council meetings start at 7:30 on those Wednesdays, then that does not create a conflict, because the Equity, Social Justice, Inclusion Committee meetings start at 6 and end at 7:30. You could ask, you might ask if we'd consider moving the Equity Committee meeting earlier, but of course, people who work may not be able to adjust their hours. So I don't know how much flexibility the board has, but certainly, hopefully, board will consider these inputs and see if they choose to revise the motion or revise the start time, I guess.
Well, the start time isn't even part of the motion, so that
you
could
might
be
consider. Yeah, you might consider if that makes sense.
I would. Yes, so that would be something that we can think about if that moving having both the board meeting and the membership meeting start at 7:30 would solve that particular problem. I'm just not sure how other problems it may create when trying to for having the community come at a 7:30 meeting instead of a 7 o'clock meeting. When we start meeting in person again, I know there are a number of people who don't drive, but if we set up hybrid meetings, then it doesn't matter if people don't drive at night. They can attend the Zoom meeting anyway, even if it starts at 7:30. So that might work better. I think for parents, my understanding is that a 7:30 start time works better for parents with children, because they can put the little ones to bed or get them fed, etc., before we have our meeting. So that might be something that we'll work on. Yes, Kevin?
So we have a meeting, of course, in 2 days. I can add this to the agenda, and so we'll see what kind of issues come up when we have our committee meeting. And certainly, Hunter, thank you for now operating as liaison. I'm sure you can help communicate to the board some of those, whatever that conversation comes up. So yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, anyone else? We're going to discuss this again at our next meeting, and we will possibly take a vote on it at that time. And maybe at that point we'll have more information about adding the start times to the motion, and then voting on it then. Any other comments or questions or concerns about this from anybody who's here? Okay, very good. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now we have open discussion. If there's anything anyone would like to raise to talk about. Nothing. I am delighted at how timely these both these meetings went this evening, and we got a wonderful discussion going on and lots of information from wonderful Captain Volpe. Wow, I am just so delighted that she's with us and is so good. So taking a look at our agenda, our next meeting date is Monday, October 17th. And it may be a hybrid meeting. If we can pull it off, we might be meeting both in person and via Zoom. We're working on trying to get these set up so that we can have as many people in the community as possible attend our meetings, both by Zoom if they need to, or in person if they prefer. And so with that, I would like to adjourn our meeting right on time. And I'm delighted that the car is hanging in there after I'm going to put the video back on and see if it lets me say goodbye with me in person. Okay. So thank you everybody so very much. It's just a delight, and please either run for the board or get a friend to. Okay. We want lots more people applying to run for the board. Okay. All right. Thanks everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Next time.
Good night.